Today it's been exactly 1 year ago since I received this box in my mail, and it included my OM system OM-1 camera, my very own example. So before that I had one on loan for a couple of weeks to test out, and I immediately thought this is a great camera. So after 1 year I thought, let's reflect over the past year and see what I experienced with this camera, what images I took, and what I like and don't like about this video. So let's dive into it and let's talk all about this camera. So first of all, I am an OM System brand ambassador, but what I want to make very clear is that I'm not getting paid by OM System to make this video. This is my own opinion, my own experience with this camera, and yeah, I just wanted to make a nice little review on this camera system. So yeah, the first thing that I noticed when I first held this camera was the viewfinder. You know, I am coming from this camera. This is the camera I had before this. This is the OM-1X from Olympus, now OM System. But first of all, let's look at this size difference between those two cameras. You know, it's amazing. And I love this OM-1X. It was excellent. The image quality was excellent, and holding the camera was excellent. But it is a bit big and bulky, and it just weighs, yeah, a lot more than this OM-1. And the funny thing is that I do like the grip underneath this OM-1X. So one of the first things I purchased after I received my camera is my own grip, and you've probably seen it in my videos over the past year that most of the times I use the camera with this grip attached, and that is just mainly because it just feels better. The holding, I just like using a grip, and not everyone has that. But what I do like is when I go to, for example, to the zoo with my children, with this camera, I had this big bulky thing to carry along all day long. But right now I just detach this grip and I only take my OM-1 camera with me. And it's just such a lightweight camera, and usually I take one lens or maybe two lenses with me. And yeah, it's just an all-round camera you can use on any circumstances. And what I do like about this grip, and now that I'm having it in my hand, I do want to state it, is not many cameras have this, but if you look at the buttons, the button design on the top of this camera, it is exactly the same as on my grip. So the little joystick is in the same spot, the release button, the ISO button, the exposure button, all these dials back here, it's all in exactly the same spot than if I'm holding the camera like this, or if I'm putting it in portrait mode. And that's what I love about this grip. You know, there's no compromise to be made with using this. So that's stated. So let's get back to the viewfinder that I wanted to tell you about. So the first thing I noticed next to the size was this viewfinder, that it is so amazingly clear on the OM-1. It's just like you're looking through reality. And why I love system cameras without mirrors is what you see is what you get. So if I look through this screen, I immediately see the adjustments I make live on the screen. So for example, if I reduce the exposure, I immediately see my image turning a little bit darker. I can see a live histogram, seeing if I overexpose or underexpose my images. I can even see a preview of my aperture settings on screen. And I can zoom in very far and just try this focus to get it pin sharp. There's just so much you can do with this viewfinder that you can do with a mirror camera. And I just love that. I am so used to these mirrorless cameras that I would never want to go back to the cameras with a mirror. So viewfinder, absolutely a huge improvement. So the second thing that I've noticed on my OM-1 was the menu structure. So the menu was totally different than all the other OM system or Olympus cameras that I've used before that. So that took some time to get used to, and the moment that I really knew what was going on here was actually when I figured out that you could use your front and back dials to swap through the menu. And that really improved something, because the front dial is for the menu tabs and the back dial is to go through them in the back. And first I used the arrow keys to front, the back, up, down, and you just kept pushing, but you can just turn those wheels and you get through these menus very quickly. And of course, like all the other professional Olympus OM system cameras, you can completely customize this camera. So there is a My menu where you can put your favorite things to use in. So you don't have to search through the whole menu. You just mark your favorite items with a special feature, and then they will come into your My menu. And yeah, I've got a small list there of the things that I use most. So the only thing I do is menu, My menu, and for example, turn on the live ND filter, which I will talk about later in this video. And what you can also do is you have this C1, 2, 3, 4 options on top here on the dial. You can program things there. So for example, I shoot my landscapes usually on the aperture mode or sometimes in the manual mode. But for example, C1 is set up for bird photography. So I've got the auto ISO there, Pro Capture on, the bird recognition on. So if I want to switch to photographing a bird, it's just a very easy turn of the dial and I'm in bird mode. So yeah, absolutely loving the customization, and every button on this camera can be customized into something else. So if you want the info button to be somewhere else, you can put it somewhere else. So there has been a lot of talk about the image quality and the noise on this camera, and I have to be honest, I was really happy with my OM-1X, but when I started to use this camera, the image quality was just so much better. The dynamic range of this camera is a huge improvement compared to that OM-1X, and the amount of noise is just so much less than on that camera, and that was already good for me, but this is just a real improvement. And I do a lot of early morning photography, so low light images, so I do use I rely on this noise very much, and the trick that I always do is I try to expose to the right side of the histogram, so almost against the overexposure point, and then reduce it in post-processing, and then it just almost leaves no room for noise anymore, and that just works perfectly. And in some cases, if you want to have a real high quality image, if you know this is a killer shot, and I've used it a couple of times during the year, you can switch easily to the high res mode. So if you push the record button on top here, so not the shutter release button, but the red record button, you will automatically switch to the high-res mode, and there's a little icon blinging on top on the left of your screen here on the back, and that means you can take an 80 megapixel image of that scene, and these images are just phenomenal. You know, the camera stacks all these images together to one huge raw file, and you can do anything with it. It's just the dynamic range is absurd. The amount of noise is almost zero, and that just works perfectly. So the only negative I have is that it still takes some time to process an image like that. So you can't take 5 high-res shots after each other. It takes a couple of seconds before it's done. But if you compare it to the EM-1X, it took about 20 seconds, and now it's reduced to maybe 3-4 seconds. But when processors are getting faster, this is the technology that's gonna make mirrorless cameras just amazing. So the next feature, and I already talked to you about this earlier on in this video, is the live ND filter. And I was used to using this. For example, this is a 10-stop ND filter, and you just put it in front of your lens with a little holder, and it's just it reduces your shutter speed very much. So you can create long exposures with this. But the negative thing, if you use this on a mirror camera, the moment you put this thing in front of your camera, you don't see anything anymore. So the first thing you have to do is you have to set your composition, set your shutter speed, put all your settings right, put the focus right, and then you moved this piece into the slot in front of your lens. And yeah, you're just hoping that you didn't touch anything or move the focus or whatever, because the moment you put this in, you can't see anything anymore. So the fun thing with mirror cameras is when you put this in, you can still see the image on back of the camera, because the camera adjusts the display and it starts overexposing the image. So you can immediately see what you are doing live on the back of the screen. And that's just a really good thing for ND filter users. But since I have this camera, I have never used this little piece of glass anymore, because the live ND filter in this camera, it goes up to ND64, I believe, and it just works all the time. You know, I've created some really nice long exposures, 20 seconds, even a minute recently. So I'll show you a couple of images after this that I shot with this live ND filter. And what the camera actually does, it stacks a couple of images together, and it gets the same effect that you get with a piece of glass in front of the lens. So it smoothens water, you can see clouds moving through the sky, and it just works absolutely amazing. So I'll show you some images now that I used with this live ND filter. So here they are. another feature that I don't use very much is the Pro Capture and subject recognition. So if you see the tracking functions on this camera for wildlife photographers, bird photographers, it's just amazing. You know, you can put on subject recognition and it can recognize birds, dogs, trains, cars, yeah, a lot more. But yeah, it just works amazing. If you put it on continuous autofocus tracking and you put on this subject recognition, the camera automatically recognizes that. And the beautiful thing is the OM-1X also had that, but it just put a little square around the bird. And with this camera, it recognizes the eyes. So if you keep it steady, you can see that this little square that's around the bird just goes directly onto the eye, and it's just spot on. And it tries to keep it there, and it just works so good. And I don't use it very much because I'm more of a landscape photographer, but I did try it on a couple of occasions, and I'm going to show some images after this part where I shot some birds with this camera, and it just never disappointed me. When I shot the OM-1X, I already had some improvements on bird photography, but there were always some missed images there. But with this, it's just amazing. And especially when you put on Pro Capture, for example, on what the camera does, if you push the shutter halfway, it starts processing images. So it keeps images remembered in its, in the brain of the camera. So the moment you push the shutter, it saves the images of, I think at 10 or 20, maybe you can adjust it, but in front of you pushing it. So if you react to a bird jumping from a little branch there, the moment you push it, you're usually late. But because the camera reminds the shots in front of that, you're never late. So it's a little bit cheating, but it's just really, really amazing. So here are some shots that I took of birds with this camera. So I've been using this camera for about a year, and still there are some features that are really good, but I haven't really tried in real life myself. For example, focus stacking. You can stack up to 100 images together. So it takes 100 images after each other, and you can stack them all together in Photoshop or even in camera as a JPEG. For macro photographers, it's amazing, and especially with this new 90mm Pro macro lens that unfortunately I had to return to OM system. But I've seen images of it, and it's just amazing. So I did some macro images, but I never tried the focus stacking thing. So that's actually quite a shame, but I'm 100% positive that it's an amazing feature. Another thing, Starry Sky autofocus. So if you're into sky photography, there are some amazing lenses at the moment, the 1.2 lenses or 2.8 aperture lenses that are perfectly suitable for sky and star photography. And yeah, the camera can very easily focus on the stars. And yeah, a function that I haven't tried here. You know, I live in the Netherlands and I'm happy to see a couple of stars here. There is so much light pollution here at night. So I tried it in Denmark, but the moment I set up the camera, clouds rolled in and they never got away. So that's a shame that I still haven't found an opportunity to test this. So I will definitely be trying that out. And the last thing that I didn't use yet is the live composite. So I had the chance in Switzerland on the car trail, the light trail image that you've seen earlier. I just took that on a 60-second long exposure with the live ND filter. And when I got back home, I was thinking I could have shot it with the live composite function. So yeah, really nice function. What the camera actually does, you take one image and it remembers the lighting of this image, the exposure. And what it does, the camera recognizes when things change inside an image, and it only adds those additional lights to the frame that you already had. So for example, if you're photographing a thunderstorm, the camera reminds what you're having, but it puts all the flashes in. So you can make an image with about 10 flashes. It's perfect for light painting, for example, if you want to do some light painting for these car light trails that I shot there. Yeah, it's just an amazing feature. So I'm definitely gonna try that out, but I haven't found the right subject yet to try it. And if I find it, I will make a video on it, how it works. But yeah, there's lots of them out there on YouTube. So if you want to search for live composite, and really an amazing feature. For example, the ambassador from Spain that I was in Amsterdam a while ago, Moises, I'll put a link somewhere down here to his Instagram. You can see some images from him. He uses it a lot and it's just an amazing feature. So one last thing that really surprises me of this camera, you know, I have used this intensively over the past year, and you have seen I've gone through all different terrains, different weather circumstances, and I'm never afraid to exchange a lens. And I have to be honest, I'm pretty quick with it. I can do it pretty fast, but in 1 year I have never cleaned the sensor of this camera, not once. And not once did I remove a dust spot from an image. I don't know what it is. There's a supersonic wave filter in this camera, so the image sensor just starts moving a little bit, pretty hard. Supersonic, it's not called that for nothing natuurlijk, of course. but every time you turn the camera on and off, it starts moving and it just shakes it off. Maybe it's that they perfected it, but or maybe I'm just very good in exchanging lenses, I don't know, but yeah, it surprises me. It's the first camera that I have for such a long time that I never had to clean the sensor off. So yeah, very happy with that. And if you talk about the sensor in this camera, the 20 megapixels has been sufficient enough for me always. I have never been in the situation that I thought I can't take an image with this camera, or the dynamic range is too high. There's so many features on this camera to help me in this process. For example, those high-res images or the Live ND filter. If you use the Live ND filter, the dynamic range just gets insane. So you can almost make pitch dark images and still pull them up in Lightroom. So yeah, all those features just help me to get the results that I need from this camera. And would I like a different sensor? Of course, like every photographer, I would like a little bit of a bigger sensor in a next model. But do I really need it? No, it does the trick for me. But if there's any improvement on this camera, yeah, I would like a couple of megapixels more of this image sensor. And compared to the OM-1X, these buttons are a little bit small for my big hands. So if I'm using some gloves in the winter, it's pretty difficult to feel which button you're pressing. So what I told you earlier about this erase button, it especially happens to me in the winter. So yeah, I would like to see them a little bit bigger, but do I want to go back to the OM-1X? Definitely not. So I would never go back to that camera because of I want bigger buttons. So that's maybe the compromise that I have to make with using a smaller camera. Another thing, but that's probably only for me using video. When I try to shoot the back of this screen here with my video camera to show you the compositions that I'm working on, it often happens to me that when I get too close, it automatically switches to the viewfinder here. And I would like a little button or a little push here on the back that I can switch that off. You can turn it off in the menu, but it's a lot of work, and I don't really like. Maybe I should put that feature in my menu, so I could turn it off and on pretty easily. So see, I'm getting ideas while I'm making this video. So yeah, I hope you like this little review of this camera. And yeah, I think the most important is that I am just so happy with this camera. And yeah, I have no plans on buying a new one. But of course, with camera gear, we are all a bit greedy. I think we have to confess to that. It's everything we want until there is a newer model. Then there's a little ghost in your head telling you, you need this new camera. But for now, this is the best available micro four thirds camera on the market. And it does the trick for me on every occasion. So yeah, I hope you like this video. I hope you find it useful. And yeah, hope to see you on the next video. So on Sundays, I always make on location videos. All the images shot with OM system gear, OM system cameras, lenses. Yeah, I just show how to use it, compositions, etc. If you like that, then make sure to subscribe to this channel, and reviews like this or tips and tricks or anything else on Thursdays. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you like the video, don't forget, push the thumbs up button. And there's a subscribe button underneath this video. If you push it and push the little notification bell, you will get a message when I release my next video. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you this Sunday. Yeah, bye for now.